It was a quiet afternoon in a small town, the kind where everyone knew everyone else. The streets were narrow, lined with small shops and little cafes that had seen better days. One particular cafe, tucked into the corner near the bakery, was a favorite among the locals. Its wooden sign swayed gently with the breeze, and the smell of fresh coffee and warm bread drifted down the street. Inside, the atmosphere was cozy, filled with the chatter of regular customers and the occasional laugh from someone passing by. On this particular day, the cafe was livelier than usual. A group of friends had gathered near the window, enjoying their drinks and teasing each other like they always did. The sunlight poured through the glass, casting a warm glow over the warm wooden tables. In the corner of the room, there was an old upright piano, a relic from a time long past. It had seen years of use, its keys slightly yellowed, but it still had a charm that made people glance at it from time to time. It was not unusual for someone to play it, but today, something different was about to happen. A young boy, perhaps around 10 or 11, quietly entered the cafe. He moved slowly, his hands outstretched slightly in front of him as if feeling his way through the room. His clothes were simple and clean, though they had clearly been worn many times. There was a calm determination in his steps, and despite the bustling crowd, he seemed to exist in his own world. He had a quiet presence that didn't demand attention, but somehow drew it naturally. The group of friends near the window noticed him immediately. One of them, with a mischievous grin, whispered to the others, "Look at that kid. He probably can't even play that old piano over there." Laughter followed, light and teasing, but carrying a hint of cruelty. It wasn't meant to be harmful, just a joke in their eyes. They enjoyed making little bets and dares, always trying to see someone else squirm a bit. Another one of the friends leaned forward, pointing at the boy. "I'll tell you what," he said, his voice louder now so everyone could hear. "If he plays, I'll buy him a piano." The statement was delivered with a laugh, as if it was impossible. Everyone in the group chuckled, shaking their heads. They imagined the boy fumbling with the keys, producing nothing but random noises. And the idea of anyone actually rewarding him seemed ridiculous. The boy stopped a few steps away from the piano, feeling the floor with his feet as he positioned himself. He hadn't been paying attention to the teasing. He didn't hear the whispers or the laughter at first. His focus was entirely on the piano. The old instrument called to him in a way that words could not describe. He had dreamed of touching a real piano for as long as he could remember, imagining the feel of the keys beneath his fingers and the sound they would produce. He reached out and lightly touched the surface of the piano. His fingers traced the edges of the keys, feeling the smoothness of the white ones and the slight roughness of the black ones. There was a moment of hesitation, just long enough for a couple of the cafe customers to glance his way and whisper among themselves. Some looked skeptical, others curious. It was rare to see someone so young take such an interest in music, and rarer still to see the intensity with which he approached the piano. The cafe owner, a kind but practical woman, watched from behind the counter. She had seen the boy around town, knew of his quiet demeanor and his curious mind. She had never heard him play before, though, and a small part of her wondered what would happen if he actually tried. The boy's mother had always spoken highly of his musical instincts, saying he had an ear for melodies and could remember tunes perfectly after hearing them just once. Still, hearing it in person was different from hearing it described. The boy took a deep breath, his small chest rising and falling steadily. He let his hands hover above the keys for a moment, feeling their shape, imagining the sounds they would make. The cafe had gone quiet around him. The usual chatter had faded as people noticed the anticipation in the room. Even the group of friends who had been teasing him leaned back in their seats, a hint of doubt creeping in. Could this boy actually play? The idea seemed impossible to them. He pressed a key, gently, just one note. It was clear and resonant, filling the space with a pure tone. The sound seemed to hang in the air, catching the attention of everyone in the cafe. Some of the regulars exchanged surprised glances, unsure if they had imagined the note. The boy smiled faintly, encouraged by the sound, and began to play another note, then another. His fingers moved carefully at first, testing the piano, listening to the way the sounds flowed together. There was a rhythm to his movements, a natural understanding that went beyond what anyone could teach. The teasing group fell silent now, their laughter replaced by curiosity and a hint of unease. The boy was not fumbling or making mistakes. He was creating a melody. It was simple at first, a gentle tune that anyone could hum along to, but there was something about it that was undeniably beautiful. It carried a sense of honesty, of someone expressing themselves without pretense. And it reached the hearts of everyone listening. The cafe owner stepped closer, leaning slightly over the counter to get a better view. She watched the boy's hands move with precision and grace. He was blind, yes, but it was clear that his mind and heart guided his fingers with perfect memory and feeling. Each note was intentional, each pause calculated, creating a flow that seemed almost magical. People began to whisper, not in teasing, but in admiration. The energy in the room shifted. What had been a place of casual chatter became a small sanctuary for music and wonder. The boy's focus never wavered. He wasn't playing for the applause or the attention, though it was clear he had captured it. He played because it was a part of him, because music had always been his companion in the quiet moments of his life. As the melody unfolded, it grew more confident, more expressive. There was a story in the music, a tale of someone who had lived with challenges, but had not let them define their limits. It was a story that everyone in the room could feel, even if they didn't fully understand it. The group who had dared him to play was frozen in place. Their earlier laughter seemed foolish now. The boy was creating something that they could not ignore. It was not just talent. It was courage, determination, and a deep connection to the music. They shifted in their seats, embarrassed that they had doubted him. One of them muttered under his breath, barely audible, "I didn't think he could do it." Meanwhile, the other customers who had been watching with mild interest were now captivated. Some leaned forward, resting their elbows on the tables, eyes fixed on the boy's hands. Others closed their eyes, letting the sound wash over them. The cafe was no longer a place for coffee and small talk. It had transformed into a space of quiet reverence for the gift unfolding before them. The boy, completely unaware of the change in atmosphere, continued to play, lost in the music. In the way it made him feel alive and understood that time seemed to stretch in the cafe. The afternoon sunlight shifted slightly through the windows, casting patterns on the wooden floor. The boy's music flowed over it, creating an invisible bridge between him and everyone present. People who had entered with distractions or minor irritations found themselves drawn into the melody, their minds and hearts touched in ways they did not anticipate. The music was gentle, yet powerful, unassuming but impossible to ignore. As the final notes of the first piece faded, there was a brief moment of silence. It was not the awkward silence of uncertainty, but a silence filled with awe and appreciation. The boy lifted his hands from the keys and looked up, sensing the reaction without seeing it. He smiled faintly, not from pride, but from the simple joy of sharing his music. Some of the customers clapped, softly at first, then with growing enthusiasm. The group of friends who had dared him to play now looked at each other, a mix of surprise and newfound respect in their eyes. The cafe owner approached him gently. "That was beautiful," she said quietly. "You have a gift." The boy nodded, a little shyly, still immersed in the feeling of what he had just played. He did not need to speak. The music had said everything for him. The man who had made the teasing remark earlier stayed in his seat, staring at the piano, the boy, and the reactions around him. He felt a strange mix of regret and amazement. He had laughed without thinking, never imagining that the boy could truly play. Now, he understood that he had witnessed something extraordinary. The afternoon continued, but the mood in the cafe had changed completely. The boy remained near the piano, ready to play again, and the customers lingered, no longer in a hurry. People who had come for a simple cup of coffee found themselves talking quietly about the boy and his music. They shared smiles, whispered comments, and exchanged glances that carried admiration. It was as if the cafe had become a small haven, where the usual rules of teasing and joking had no place, replaced instead by wonder and appreciation. Outside, the wind picked up slightly, rustling the leaves on the trees lining the street. The sunlight continued to warm the cafe, catching the dust motes that danced in the air. Inside, the boy's presence had created a ripple effect, changing the energy of the room with something intangible yet undeniable. It was more than just playing piano. It was a reminder of human resilience, of the power of pursuing a passion, and of the way simple acts can touch the hearts of many. As the boy prepared to play another melody. The boy continued to play, his fingers gliding over the keys with a quiet confidence that seemed almost impossible. The cafe, once filled with chatter and laughter, now felt like it had transformed into a small concert hall. Every note he played seemed to carry a story, a small piece of his heart, and those listening could feel it. The melody was gentle at first, weaving softly around the room, but slowly it began to grow, lifting and falling like waves in a calm sea. Each sound was precise, deliberate, yet full of warmth and emotion. People who had been talking or scrolling on their phones now sat quietly, leaning forward, eyes fixed on the boy's hands. They watched, mesmerized, as he coaxed sound after sound from the piano. It was remarkable to see such focus and determination in someone so young. There was a sense that the boy was speaking through music, telling a story that words could never capture. It was as though the piano had become a bridge, connecting him to everyone in the room in a language that transcended speech. The group of friends who had teased him earlier was silent now, their faces reflecting disbelief and amazement. One of them leaned slightly forward, trying to understand how someone so young could play with such confidence. Another whispered under his breath, hardly believing it, He's actually good." There was no laughter, no teasing, only quiet admiration. They had expected clumsy, random notes, but instead, they were witnessing something extraordinary. The boy was unaware of the effect he had on the crowd. His world consisted only of the keys beneath his fingers and the music he imagined in his mind. He moved from note to note with careful attention, shaping each chord, listening to how the sounds intertwined. He wasn't playing a simple tune anymore. He was building something complex, something that grew and evolved as he played. His memory guided him, allowing him to recreate songs he had heard in the past, twisting them into his own version that felt alive and personal. An older woman sitting near the counter had tears welling in her eyes. She could not understand why, but the music stirred a deep feeling in her heart, a sense of longing, hope, and joy all at once. She held her cup tightly, afraid that if she looked away, she might miss something beautiful. A young man in the corner, who had been quietly reading, closed his book and simply listened. The rhythm and melody carried him to memories he hadn't thought about in years, reminding him of days long gone, of friends, family, and places that felt like home. The boy shifted slightly on the bench, feeling the weight of the piano beneath him. He was not uncomfortable, only fully absorbed in the flow of the music. The notes danced beneath his fingertips, rising and falling in a natural pattern that seemed to come from his very soul. He didn't play fast or show off. There was no need for that. His music was honest, simple, and deeply moving. Every chord resonated, Every pause mattered, and the room seemed to breathe with him as he played. The cafe owner watched, pride swelling in her chest. She had seen many young people pass through her doors, some showing talent, others curiosity, but none had touched her heart like this boy had. She could see the concentration on his face, the way his small hands moved with care and precision. It was more than skill. It was passion, determination, and a sense of purpose. She knew that this moment would not be forgotten, not by her, and certainly not by the others who had stopped to listen. Outside the cafe, the wind shifted, carrying the faint sounds of the street into the room. But inside, the music dominated. The boy's melody had a gentle power, filling every corner, touching everyone present. Some people closed their eyes to better feel the music. Others smiled softly, moved by the unexpected beauty of it. It was not just sound. It was emotion, connection, and a story told without a single word. The boy's confidence grew as he continued to play. His hands moved more freely now, guided by instinct and memory. He explored higher notes, then lower, allowing the melody to expand and evolve. There was a subtle joy in the way he played, a sense of freedom that only comes when someone is completely immersed in what they love. The cafe had become a canvas, and his music painted it with colors that only the heart could see. The group of friends, once so sure of their joke, now felt a mixture of awe and shame. One of them leaned back, avoiding the boy's gaze, realizing how thoughtless their teasing had been. Another whispered quietly, "I didn't know anyone could play like that." Their words were small, but they were sincere. They had underestimated the boy completely, and now they could not deny his talent. The boy did not stop to think about their reactions. He did not need their approval or applause. His music came from a place inside him that was untouched by judgment. He played for the joy it brought him, for the feeling of being alive, and for the connection he could create with others through sound. Every note was deliberate, every pause meaningful, and the room seemed to hang on each one, captivated by the simple truth of his gift. The cafe owner, unable to resist, moved closer to the piano. She watched the boy's hands, tracing the way his fingers pressed the keys, shaping the melody with gentle precision. She marveled at the skill he had developed without sight, the dedication it must have taken to learn and remember so many songs by ear alone. It was a rare and beautiful thing, a testament to human resilience and the power of passion. Other customers had stopped what they were doing entirely. The young woman who had been on her laptop now had her hands folded on the table, listening intently. A man who had been reading the newspaper had laid it down, eyes fixed on the boy. Even the barista, who had been busy preparing drinks, paused mid-motion to listen. The music had captured everyone, creating a shared experience that was both quiet and powerful. There was a sense of magic in the air, a feeling that something rare and unforgettable was happening. As the boy continued, his music shifted subtly. He played with more emotion now, allowing the melody to carry sorrow, hope, and joy all at once. It was not loud or overwhelming, but the depth of feeling was undeniable. Each note resonated in the hearts of those listening, bringing tears to some eyes and smiles to others. The cafe had become more than a place for coffee and conversation. It had become a sanctuary, a space where the beauty of human expression could be felt and shared. The group of friends finally spoke again, this time with quiet respect. "He's incredible," one whispered, almost reverently. Another nodded, unable to find words. They had started the day with laughter at his expense. But now they understood something important. Talent and courage can appear in the most unexpected places, and judging someone without understanding can lead to surprise and admiration. The boy sensed the attention around him, but he did not let it distract him. His focus remained on the music, on the way the notes connected and the story they told. He shifted slightly on the bench, feeling the vibrations of the piano through the wood beneath him. Connecting with the instrument in a way that went beyond sight. Each chord was deliberate, each phrase intentional, and the melody flowed naturally, capturing the hearts of everyone in the room. The cafe owner approached cautiously, afraid to disturb the moment. She whispered softly, "You have a gift that will touch many people." The boy's small smile was all the response she needed. He did not need words. His music spoke louder than anything anyone could say. The room seemed to hold its breath as he played, caught in the delicate balance between silence and sound. Outside, the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the streets. Inside, the boy's music continued, filling the cafe with warmth and light. People who had entered with ordinary days now found themselves part of something extraordinary. They would remember this moment, the sound of the piano, and the young boy who could see the world through his music, even if he could not see it with his eyes dot as he finished another piece. The room remained quiet for a moment, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then soft applause began, growing steadily until the cafe was filled with genuine appreciation. The group of friends who had once teased him now looked on with respect and wonder. The boy had shown them, and everyone else present, that talent, dedication, and heart could not be measured by sight alone. The boy lifted his hands from the keys, taking a moment to feel the air, to breathe, to absorb the reactions around him. His world was quiet, but it was alive with sound and feeling. He had shared a part of himself, and in return, he had touched the hearts of everyone in the room. The cafe, once ordinary, now felt like a special place. A place where something rare had been witnessed, and everyone present knew it. And so the afternoon continued, with people lingering a little longer, smiles on their faces, hearts a little fuller, and the boy ready to play again, unaware of the ripple of admiration he had created, and the lives he had quietly changed with nothing more than the sound of music and the courage to play. The boy's fingers danced over the piano keys, producing a melody that seemed to float effortlessly through the air. Every note carried a depth that drew the listeners closer, not physically, but in spirit. The cafe was now completely silent, except for the music, and even the soft sounds of cups clinking and chairs shifting seemed to disappear. Each sound from the piano was clear, deliberate, and full of emotion, capturing the attention of everyone present. People leaned forward in their seats, their eyes fixed on the boy's hands, unable to look away. There was something about the way he played that felt alive, as though the piano itself was an extension of him. He was not thinking about the crowd or the teasing words from earlier. He was entirely absorbed in the music. The rhythm rose and fell like a gentle wave, carrying with it a sense of calm and hope. Each chord resonated deeply, creating vibrations that seemed to echo through the very bones of the listeners. The boy's face, calm and focused, reflected the intensity of his connection with the instrument. The group of friends who had been joking before now sat in stunned silence. Their earlier laughter seemed foolish and distant. One of them whispered, almost to himself, "I didn't think anyone could play like that." Another nodded slowly, feeling a sense of awe wash over him. They had thought they were teasing a helpless child, but now they realized that this boy had a gift far beyond their imagination. Their eyes followed his hands, watching the precision, the delicacy, and the confidence with which he moved across the keys. The cafe owner, standing behind the counter, felt a mixture of pride and wonder. She had watched many young people come and go, some with talent, some without, but she had never seen anyone play with such natural grace and emotional depth. She could see how much practice and dedication had gone into developing such skill. It was a rare gift, and she felt honored to witness it. Her eyes softened as she watched the boy, sensing the passion and joy that radiated from him with every note. The older woman near the counter dabbed her eyes gently, moved by the music. It was not just beautiful, it was healing. She felt as though the boy's melody had touched parts of her heart that had been quiet for years, bringing back memories of her own childhood and times long past. A young man who had been quietly reading now sat with his eyes closed, letting the music carry him to places he had forgotten. It was as if the melody was creating a shared moment, connecting everyone in the cafe through a language that needed no words. The boy's fingers moved more confidently now, exploring higher notes, then diving into the lower ones. He was no longer simply playing a song. He was expressing something profound. There was joy, longing, and hope intertwined in the melody, and it flowed naturally from him. He had learned by ear, practicing on small keyboards, and even tables when a piano was unavailable. But now that he had the real instrument beneath his hands, the music was alive in a way he had only imagined. Every note felt like a conversation, every pause a sigh, and every chord a heartbeat. The group of friends began to shift in their seats, their expressions a mixture of embarrassment and admiration. One of them whispered, "We were so wrong to laugh at him." Another nodded, keeping his voice low, "He's amazing." They realized that talent and courage could come from the most unexpected places, and judging someone without understanding could lead to moments of revelation. They had been cruel without thinking, but now they were witnesses to something extraordinary. Their respect grew with every note that the boy played. The cafe owner moved a little closer, drawn by the emotion of the moment. She watched the boy's hands, tracing every movement, noting the precision and grace with which he played. She could see the story unfolding in the music, a story of perseverance, passion, and quiet determination. It was not only his skill that was impressive, but the heart and soul he poured into every sound. She felt a deep sense of gratitude to be there, watching someone express the purest form of creativity. The customers who had entered earlier for simple coffee and conversation were now fully absorbed. A young woman who had been busy on her laptop now rested her chin on her hands, listening with a soft smile. An older man who had been glancing at his watch now leaned back, eyes closed, letting the music guide his thoughts. Even the barista, mid-motion of preparing a drink, paused to feel the notes and rhythms fill the room. The boy's music had created an unspoken connection among everyone present, a bond forged by the beauty and honesty of his performance. As the melody grew, the boy allowed himself to explore more complex patterns. He intertwined fast arpeggios with slow, lingering chords, creating a dynamic that was both gentle and powerful. The cafe seemed to hold its breath with each change in tempo, each rise and fall of the music. The boy's blind eyes seemed to see the music in ways that went beyond sight, guiding his hands and heart in perfect harmony. It was clear that he played not for applause or recognition, but for the joy of sharing something that came from deep within. The group of friends had stopped whispering now, their eyes wide with amazement. One of them leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, unable to tear his gaze away. He muttered under his breath, "I never expected this." Another simply shook his head, speechless, realizing that their previous teasing was not only wrong, but insignificant in the face of such talent. The boy had shown them that courage, skill, and heart could not be judged by age, appearance, or circumstance. The boy's attention remained on the keys, his small fingers moving effortlessly across the piano. He shifted slightly on the bench, feeling the resonance of the instrument beneath him. Each note was intentional, each pause deliberate, and the melody seemed to breathe with him. The music was not only heard but felt, vibrating through the room, touching hearts and minds alike. People who had been strangers a moment ago now shared an intimate connection through the universal language of sound. The cafe owner, unable to resist, stepped closer still. She watched the boy's hands, the subtle movements of his fingers, the gentle rise and fall of his shoulders with each phrase. She could see the dedication, the countless hours of practice, and the love he had for music reflected in every motion. It was more than talent. It was a testament to resilience, focus, and the power of pursuing something with unwavering passion. She felt a surge of pride, knowing that she was witnessing a moment that would stay with her for the rest of her life. Other customers began to react quietly, some closing their eyes, some leaning forward, all of them fully engaged. The young woman on the laptop now rested her hands together, smiling softly. The older man by the window wiped a tear from his cheek, moved by the depth of feeling in the music. Even the barista, who had been juggling orders and drinks, paused to take in the sounds, feeling a rare sense of peace and connection. The boys' music had transformed the cafe from a place of casual conversation into a space of shared experience and wonder. As the boy continued, he allowed the melody to carry both sorrow and joy, blending them seamlessly into a song that was deeply human. He played with an intensity that was gentle yet powerful, drawing listeners into a world where only the music mattered. Every chord he struck seemed to resonate with the lives of those listening, reminding them of moments they had cherished, of dreams they had forgotten, and of the beauty that existed in the simplest of expressions. The room was alive with emotion, yet quiet, held together by the delicate threads of sound. The group of friends could no longer hide their admiration. One whispered to another, "He's incredible. I can't believe it." The other nodded, eyes wide, feeling a humility that came from witnessing true talent. They had entered the cafe expecting amusement, but they were instead met with inspiration. Their teasing seemed small, their laughter misplaced, replaced now by deep respect. The boy had changed the atmosphere, and perhaps even their perspective, with nothing more than the purity of his music. The boy felt the vibrations of the piano, guiding his fingers to the notes he imagined. He shifted slightly, his posture relaxed, yet focused. Each note, each pause, each chord carried intention. He did not need to see the crowd. He could feel their reactions, sense their attention, and let it inform the subtle nuances in his playing. It was a silent dialogue between him, the piano, and the hearts of those listening. And it was beautiful in its simplicity. The cafe owner, watching from a short distance, felt her chest tighten with emotion. She had witnessed many performances in her life, but none had been as genuine, as touching, as heartfelt as this. The boy's music was not about showing off. It was about expressing something beyond words. It was a reflection of his life, his experiences, and the world as he perceived it. And in doing so, he had connected with everyone in the room in a profound and unforgettable way. Outside, the sunlight shifted slightly, casting long shadows across the street. Inside, the boy's music continued, filling every corner with warmth and life. People who had entered for ordinary reasons found themselves swept up in something extraordinary. They would carry this moment with them, the sound of the piano, the grace of the boy's hands, and the emotion in each note. It was a reminder that talent, heart, and dedication often come from the most unexpected places, and that beauty can touch anyone at any time. As the boy concluded another piece, the room remained quiet for a moment, as if savoring. The boy's music filled the cafe, wrapping around every person present, carrying a quiet power that no words could capture. His fingers moved swiftly and gracefully across the piano keys, bringing forth a melody that was at once gentle and commanding. Every note was deliberate, and each chord seemed to tell a story that only he could narrate. People sat captivated, leaning forward slightly, as if trying to get closer to the source of the magic. The group of friends who had initially mocked him remained frozen in their seats. Their eyes widened as the boy's performance unfolded. They had entered the cafe with laughter, confident that they would see a clumsy display. Yet now, all they could do was watch in awe. One whispered quietly to another, "I can't believe this. He's incredible." There was a mixture of surprise, respect, and humility in their voices. They had underestimated him completely, and the boy's music reminded them that true talent could never be judged by appearance alone. The cafe owner watched with a sense of pride and amazement. She had known that the boy had potential, but she had never seen anyone transform a space so completely. His music carried the room to another place, another time, filling hearts with emotions that were raw and real. She noticed the subtle movements of his body, the way his shoulders rose and fell with each phrase, the way his hands glided over the keys with confidence and precision. It was a performance born not just from skill, but from passion and determination. Other customers were equally captivated. A young woman, who had been quietly sipping her coffee, now rested her elbows on the table, her chin in her hands, her eyes fixed on the boy's hands. An older man by the window, who had been reading, now leaned back with his eyes closed, letting the music wash over him. Even the barista, who had been preparing drinks, paused, captivated by the sound. The music had created a shared experience, a bond that connected everyone in the room through the language of melody. The boy's fingers moved confidently across the keys, exploring both high and low notes, creating a rhythm that rose and fell like waves on the sea. His music was not hurried, yet it had a momentum that kept the listeners engaged. There was a depth to each note, a subtle emotion that resonated deeply with everyone present. It was as if the boy was speaking directly to each person in the room, telling a story that words could not convey. The group of friends shifted slightly in their seats. They had come to the cafe thinking this would be a moment of amusement, but instead they were witnessing something extraordinary. One whispered almost reverently, "We were wrong." So wrong. Another nodded, unable to find words, his expression a mix of awe and respect. The boy had changed their perspective in an instant, teaching them a lesson about judgment, humility, and the unexpected depth of human potential. The cafe owner stepped closer, unable to resist the pull of the music. She watched the boy's hands, noting the precision and care with which he played. She could feel the dedication that had gone into developing such a skill, the countless hours of practice, and the unwavering passion that drove him. The music was not just sound. It was a reflection of his soul, a window into a world that only he could see through his fingertips. It was beautiful, moving, and impossible to ignore. Outside, the wind carried the faint sounds of the street, but inside, the piano dominated. The boy's melody was rich and expressive, filling every corner of the room. People who had come for a quick coffee found themselves mesmerized, fully present in a moment that was rare and precious. A young man who had been quietly observing now sat with his hands folded, listening intently, his mind caught up in the waves of sound. The music was more than entertainment. It was an experience, a shared connection that transcended words. The boy allowed the music to flow naturally, each note following the next in perfect harmony. He incorporated variations, subtle changes in tempo, and delicate touches that kept the listeners engaged. The melody grew in intensity, yet it retained a softness that made it approachable, drawing people in rather than overwhelming them. Each pause was as meaningful as the notes themselves, creating space for reflection and emotion. The group of friends could no longer hide their admiration. One whispered, "I wish I could play like that." Another simply nodded, realizing that talent, patience, and heart could not be rushed or forced. Their earlier mockings seemed distant and meaningless, replaced now by a newfound respect and appreciation. They were learning a silent lesson about humility and the power of discovering unexpected talent. The boy shifted slightly on the bench, feeling the vibrations of the piano beneath him. He did not need to see the audience. He could sense their attention, their reactions, their emotions. It was a silent dialogue, a shared understanding between him and everyone listening. Each chord, each phrase, each pause was part of a conversation that transcended words, touching hearts in ways that were both subtle and profound. The cafe owner smiled softly, her heart full. She had seen many performances in her time, but none had the authenticity and depth of this one. The boy's music was not about impressing anyone. It was about expressing something deeply personal, something real. She could feel the passion in every note, the dedication in every movement, and the joy in every phrase. It was a reminder of the power of human expression and the beauty that comes from pursuing something with all your heart. Customers were similarly affected. A young woman leaned back, eyes closed, letting the music carry her away. An older man had a gentle smile, tears forming at the corners of his eyes. Even the barista, mid-motion of making coffee, paused to feel the music, appreciating the moment of calm and beauty it brought. The cafe, once ordinary, had transformed into a space of shared wonder, a sanctuary where the simple act of playing a piano could touch the soul of everyone present. The boy's fingers moved effortlessly, exploring new chords and patterns, creating a melody that was at once familiar and unique. The music had a rhythm that flowed naturally, with crescendos and diminuendos that kept the listeners engaged. Each phrase was carefully shaped, each note deliberate, yet the overall effect was spontaneous and alive. It was as if the music itself had a life of its own, guided by the boy's heart and hands. The group of friends finally spoke again, their voices quiet but sincere. "He's amazing," one said. Another nodded, unable to articulate the depth of their admiration. They had come expecting amusement, but they were now witnessing inspiration. The boy had shown them that courage, skill, and heart could appear in the most unexpected places. Their previous teasing seemed insignificant, replaced now by respect and a sense of wonder. The boy continued, completely absorbed in the music. He shifted slightly on the bench, feeling the resonance of the piano, letting it guide his fingers. Each note, each pause, each chord was intentional, creating a melody that was both complex and heartfelt. He did not play for applause or recognition. He played because music was a part of him, a way to communicate, to feel, and to connect. The audience could sense this authenticity, and it made the experience even more powerful. The cafe owner, standing close by, could feel the energy in the room. The boy's music had transformed the space, creating a shared experience that was rare and precious. It was more than just a performance. It was a lesson in patience, dedication, and the beauty of expressing oneself honestly. She felt a deep gratitude for being able to witness such a moment, knowing that it would remain with her for a long time. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, casting warm golden light into the cafe. Inside, the boy's music continued, filling the room with warmth, emotion, and life. People who had come for simple coffee or conversation now found themselves part of something extraordinary. The music had created a connection, a shared memory that would remain long after the notes had faded. It was a reminder that talent, heart, and dedication often come from the most unexpected places, and that beauty can touch anyone at any time. As the boy finished another piece, the room remained silent for a brief moment, savoring the last vibrations of the piano. Then soft applause began, growing steadily until the entire cafe joined in. The group of friends who had once mocked him now looked on with respect and awe. The boy, unaware of the full impact of his performance, smiled faintly, ready to continue, his music already reaching into the hearts of everyone around him. The audience knew they had witnessed something rare and unforgettable, a gift that had been shared without words, only through the power of music. The music filled the cafe like a warm embrace, each note carrying a story that the boy had lived silently in his heart. The audience, fully captivated, could feel the emotions behind each chord. It was clear now that he wasn't just playing a piano. He was sharing a part of himself, a language of feeling and experience that transcended words. The cafe had transformed into a quiet sanctuary, where the boundaries between performer and listener had melted away. The cafe owner watched with a mixture of pride and amazement. She had always known that the boy had talent, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. Every movement, every note, reflected the countless hours of practice he had dedicated to learning music without sight. She had heard stories from his mother about how he spent his days, memorizing melodies and experimenting on small keyboards and surfaces around their home. Now, seeing him perform on a real piano, she understood the depth of his dedication and love for music. The group of friends who had teased him earlier remained silent, completely absorbed in the performance. One of them whispered, "We had no idea. He's amazing." Another simply shook his head, unable to find words to express the awe he felt. The boy had taught them a lesson without speaking a single word. Never judge someone by appearances or assumptions. They realized how shallow their laughter had been, and a quiet respect settled in their hearts for the young musician, who had turned a casual afternoon into something extraordinary. The older woman near the counter dabbed her eyes gently, moved by the music. Memories of her own childhood and moments long past came rushing back, carried on the gentle waves of sound. She could feel the joy, the struggle, and the hope that the boy had poured into every note. A young man who had been quietly observing now leaned back, eyes closed, letting the music carry him away. The cafe had become more than just a place to drink coffee. It had become a vessel for shared emotion and reflection. The boy's fingers moved effortlessly, gliding over the keys with a rhythm and grace that seemed both natural and miraculous. Each chord, each note, was carefully chosen, creating a melody that spoke directly to the hearts of those listening. He shifted slightly on the bench, feeling the piano's resonance beneath his fingers, allowing the vibrations to guide him. He played not for recognition or praise, but because music was an essential part of who he was, a way to express what words could never convey. The group of friends leaned forward, their earlier teasing forgotten. One whispered to another, "I wish I could be that brave." The other nodded, realizing that courage and talent often appear in the most unexpected places. They had learned an important lesson that day, and the humility in their expressions reflected the deep respect they now felt. The boy had not only shared his music, but had also shared a piece of his heart, leaving an imprint on everyone present. The cafe owner stepped closer, drawn by the intensity of the performance. She could see the boy's concentration, the way he shaped each phrase with care and intention. It was more than technical skill. It was an expression of his soul, a reflection of his life experiences and the challenges he had overcome. The music carried a depth that resonated with everyone in the room, creating a connection that was both intimate and profound. Customers who had come for ordinary reasons now found themselves completely immersed. The young woman who had been busy on her laptop now rested her chin on her hands, listening intently. An older man who had been reading now closed his book, letting the music envelop him. Even the barista, mid-motion of making a drink, paused to take in the sounds, feeling a rare moment of calm and connection. The boy's music had created a shared experience, a silent understanding among strangers. United by the beauty of his performance. As the melody continued, the boy's music began to tell a deeper story. The notes carried the weight of his journey, the challenges of growing up without sight, the long hours of practice, and the determination to follow his passion despite obstacles. He had spent countless hours learning to play entirely by ear, memorizing songs and experimenting with small keyboards and surfaces around his home. Every note he struck was a testament to his perseverance, a reflection of his unyielding spirit. The group of friends watched, captivated and humbled. They could see the dedication behind every movement, the countless sacrifices that had led to this moment. One whispered, "We took him for granted. We had no idea what he had worked for." Another nodded quietly, a mixture of regret and admiration in his eyes. The boy had transformed their perception, teaching them the value of effort, resilience, and talent that goes beyond appearances. The boy's music grew richer, more expressive. He shifted seamlessly between soft, delicate notes and powerful, resonant chords, creating a dynamic that kept the audience enthralled. Each variation in tempo, each pause was intentional, allowing the listeners to absorb the full emotional depth of the performance. The cafe had become a living space for music, every heartbeat in the room aligned with the ebb and flow of the melody. The cafe owner felt her heart swell with emotion. She had seen talent before, but never like this. It was not just about skill or technical proficiency. It was about the honesty and authenticity of the performance. The boy had poured his heart into every note, and it was impossible not to feel it. She knew that this moment would stay with her forever, a memory of something truly extraordinary. The customers were equally moved. Some closed their eyes to better immerse themselves in the music, letting it carry them to memories and emotions long forgotten. Others leaned forward, captivated by the grace and precision of the boy's performance. Even the group of friends, once skeptical and mocking, were now silent witnesses to something remarkable. They had come to laugh, but they left with a newfound respect and a sense of wonder that could not be put into words. The boy continued to play, each note carefully placed, each phrase deliberate. His small hands moved with confidence and purpose, guided by years of practice and a deep connection to the piano. He did not play for recognition or applause. He played because it was part of who he was, a means of expression that transcended the limitations of sight. The audience could feel the sincerity in every note, the authenticity of a young heart sharing its truth through music. The group of friends whispered quietly among themselves, acknowledging the depth of what they were witnessing. "He's beyond talent," one said softly. "There's heart in every note." Another nodded, a mixture of awe and humility on his face. The boy had shown them that courage, skill, and dedication could appear in unexpected forms, and that appearances often masked incredible ability. The boy shifted slightly, allowing the piano's resonance to guide his fingers. He explored both high and low notes, creating a melody that was complex, expressive, and deeply moving. Every chord carried intention. Every pause added meaning. The music was a dialogue, connecting him to the audience in a way that words could never achieve. It was a story of perseverance, hope, and the quiet power of following one's passion despite obstacles. The cafe owner, unable to contain her admiration, stepped closer, watching the boy with tears in her eyes. She saw the dedication, the countless hours of practice, and the courage that had brought him to this moment. The boy's music was not just entertainment. It was a testament to human resilience and the beauty of expressing oneself with honesty and passion. She knew that everyone present would remember this performance for the rest of their lives. The audience, once casual and distracted, was now fully engaged. Every listener felt the depth of the boy's performance, connected to the emotions he conveyed through each note. The cafe had become a shared space of understanding and empathy, a place where music bridged gaps and brought people together. The boy's presence, his skill, and his heart had transformed the room, leaving an indelible impression on all who were there. As the final notes of the piece faded into silence, the cafe remained still for a moment, savoring the last vibrations. Then, slowly, applause began, soft at first, then growing into a steady wave. The group of friends who had once mocked him now looked on with respect and awe. They had come expecting a joke, but they had witnessed something far greater. The boy smiled faintly, unaware of the full impact of his performance, ready to continue, his music already reaching into the hearts of everyone around him, leaving a lasting impression of talent, perseverance, and the quiet power of following one's passion. The boy felt the vibrations of the piano beneath his fingers as he began another piece, softer this time, almost like a gentle whisper to the room. The audience, still captivated from the previous performance, leaned forward, sensing that something special was about to unfold. There was a quiet anticipation, a sense that the music would not only be heard, but deeply felt. Every note the boy struck was intentional, full of emotion, carrying both hope and a subtle strength that resonated with everyone present. The group of friends who had once mocked him now sat in complete silence, their expressions a mix of awe, respect, and admiration. They had been humbled by what they had already witnessed, but there was something different about this piece, something that reached further into the heart. One of them whispered quietly, "It's like he's speaking to all of us at once." The other nodded slowly, realizing that they had underestimated not just his talent, but the depth of his soul. The cafe owner watched closely, moved by the boy's ability to express such profound emotion without a single word. She could see the dedication etched into his every movement, the countless hours spent practicing in silence, guided by nothing but memory and feeling. It was remarkable that someone so young and without sight could create something so powerful, so universally understood. Her heart swelled with pride and gratitude for having the chance to witness it. Other patrons were equally absorbed. A young woman who had been quietly observing now closed her eyes, letting the melody carry her to a place of reflection and emotion. An older man, who had been sitting near the window, leaned back and listened with a soft smile, touched by the story woven into each note. Even the barista paused mid-motion, feeling the music ripple through the cafe, grounding them in a shared moment that was beautiful, intimate, and unforgettable. The boy's fingers danced across the keys with precision and grace, creating a melody that seemed to rise and fall like waves on a quiet shore. Each chord was deliberate, each pause meaningful, and the melody seemed to breathe with him. He had grown up learning to play by ear, memorizing songs and experimenting with small instruments at home, and now all that practice was coming to life in a way that left no one untouched. The music carried not only skill, but a story of perseverance, determination, and hope that the group of friends whispered among themselves, unable to hide the emotion that had taken over. "He's incredible," one said softly. Another nodded, his eyes wide with admiration. They had come to the cafe expecting amusement, but they were now witnessing inspiration. The boy had turned a moment that could have been ordinary into something extraordinary, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had the privilege to listen. The boy allowed the music to flow naturally, shifting seamlessly between gentle, tender notes and bold, resonant chords. He played with a freedom that seemed to defy his physical limitations, expressing a world only he could fully perceive. Every listener could feel the honesty and authenticity in the music, and it created an unspoken connection between them. Strangers became a community in that moment, united by the beauty and emotion of a young boy's gift. The cafe owner stepped closer, her heart full of emotion. She noticed the small details, the way his fingers hovered for just a moment before striking each key, the slight movements of his shoulders with the rhythm, and the serene focus in his expression. It was clear that he played not for applause or recognition, but because music was a part of him, an extension of his being. The audience could sense this, and it made the experience even more profound. Outside, the light began to soften as the day moved toward evening, casting a warm glow through the windows. Inside, the music dominated, carrying warmth and life into every corner. People who had entered casually now felt fully engaged, moved in ways they had not expected. A young man who had been quietly observing now rested his hands on the table, fully absorbed in the melody. The boy's music had transformed an ordinary afternoon into a shared, unforgettable moment. The group of friends had been silent for several minutes, caught up in the performance. They whispered quietly, realizing that the boy had taught them something valuable about humility, talent, and courage. One said, "I think we'll remember this for the rest of our lives." The other nodded, understanding that witnessing someone give their heart so fully was a rare and transformative experience. The boy had not just performed. He had inspired, reminded them of the power of dedication, and the beauty of expressing oneself honestly. The boy's music grew in intensity and emotion, reaching a point where every note felt like it carried the weight of his experiences and dreams. He moved with confidence, allowing the piano to become an extension of himself, every sound deliberate yet natural. The audience felt the depth of his story without a single word being spoken. Each chord carried emotion, each pause spoke volumes, and the melody resonated with the unspoken hopes and memories of everyone listening. The cafe owner, tears welling in her eyes, could not help but smile. She knew that moments like this were rare, moments where talent, heart, and courage come together to create something unforgettable. She had witnessed many performances, but none had moved her like this. The boy had a gift that could touch lives, and she felt privileged to be a part of this experience. To see someone share their heart so openly and fully, the other patrons were equally affected. Some closed their eyes, letting the music carry them through their own memories and emotions. Others leaned forward, captivated by the skill and emotion expressed in every note. Even the group of friends who had once mocked him were now fully silent, feeling the weight and beauty of what they were hearing. They had been taught a lesson without words: never judge, never underestimate, and always allow the possibility of unexpected brilliance. The boy continued, completely absorbed in the music. His fingers moved with a practiced ease, creating melodies that were complex yet approachable, bold yet gentle. Each note, each chord, each phrase carried intention, creating a dialogue between him and everyone listening. He was not performing for applause. He was performing to share, to connect, to give voice to a story that lived in his heart. The group of friends finally spoke, their voices low but sincere. "He's more than talented," one whispered. "There's courage, heart, everything in every note." Another nodded quietly, humbled by the depth of what they had witnessed. They had come expecting laughter and mockery, and now they were left with respect, admiration, and a sense of wonder that could not be easily forgotten. The boy had not only played music, he had shared a part of his soul and taught them a quiet but profound lesson. The boy's fingers moved effortlessly across the piano keys, weaving together a melody that was alive and full of meaning. He shifted slightly on the bench, feeling the resonance of the piano and allowing it to guide him. Every note was intentional, every pause carefully placed, and the melody carried emotion that went beyond simple description. The room seemed to breathe with him, every listener held captive by the honesty and beauty of his performance. The cafe owner, unable to restrain her admiration, moved closer, feeling the energy of the moment. She could see the years of practice and dedication reflected in every movement. The boy's music was a gift, a rare expression of human creativity and perseverance. She knew that everyone present would remember this moment for a long time. The feeling of witnessing someone share their heart without reservation, and the power of music to connect people across any divide. The patrons were caught in the spell of the music, fully present and engaged. Each note seemed to speak directly to them, creating personal connections, evoking memories, and stirring emotions they had not expected to feel that day. The boy had transformed the cafe, turning an ordinary afternoon into an unforgettable experience, and reminding everyone present of the beauty of sharing one's talent and heart. As the boy reached the final notes, he allowed them to linger, letting the sound resonate through the room, filling every corner with a warmth that was almost tangible. The cafe remained silent for a moment, as if honoring the last vibrations of the piano. Then slowly, applause began, soft at first, then building steadily into a chorus of appreciation and awe. The group of friends who had once mocked him now looked on with reverence. Humbled by what they had witnessed, the boy smiled faintly, feeling the warmth of the audience's admiration, but remaining modest. He had played not for recognition, but for the joy of sharing his gift, and the impact was evident in every face around him. The cafe owner felt her chest tighten with emotion, knowing that she had been part of a rare and unforgettable moment. The music had reached beyond the physical space, touching hearts, inspiring minds, and leaving a lasting impression that would be remembered by all who had the privilege to hear it. The boy rose from the bench, his small hands lingering for a moment on the keys, feeling the energy of the room and the connection he had created. The audience remained silent, savoring the moment before the applause returned, louder and more heartfelt than before. The group of friends approached him quietly, their faces reflecting respect, admiration, and a hint of remorse for their earlier mockery. They understood that they had witnessed something extraordinary, a moment of true talent, courage, and heart that could not be measured by sight or appearance. The cafe had become a pla,